Kamen Rider Ryuki.
After getting beat up by Ren's cool new upgraded form, Asakura sits at his base, but it seems like Raiko's there waiting for him. Raiko knows that Asakura lived through a house fire when he was young. His parents perished in that fire. Asakura tried to save his brother and has the burn marks to prove it, but he thinks that his brother is dead. If his brother is alive, then Asakura might be able to change. Kitaoka confirmed that Asakura's brother really is alive. Raiko wants to know where he is. Raiko talks to a man named Akira. She knows that Akira met with Kitaoka after a fire burned down his house. Akira knows where this is headed and doesn't want anything to do with his brother. Asakura is better off dead. Raiko brings up that Asakura tried to save his life. Raiko and friends are in a car with Akira on their way to meet with Asakura. Shinji believes that Asakura's past crimes won't be forgiven, but at least he won't do any more. Asakura stands in front of their car. The two brothers stand face to face. Akira apologizes for not knowing that Asakura saved his life in the fire. Asakura smiles. The fire was started by Asakura himself. There's no way he'd save Akira. Now he's gonna finish what he started. Asakura summons his contract monster to kill his brother. Shinji cannot believe a human like Asakura exists. Ren says he isn't human. He's a monster. Yui meets up with Kanzaki at the house she's been investigating. Kanzaki's house. She's tired of everything going on with the riders, so she begins to rip apart everything that is covering a mirror. Kanzaki tries to stop her, but she's out of control. Yui doesn't want anything to do with Kanzaki anymore. As she leaves, Kanzaki pulls out a golden deck. By chance, Ren, Shinji, Kitaoka, and Asakura all begin to fight. Asakura is about to use a final vent, but a bright light surrounds them with a golden rider floating from the sky. He tells them to continue fighting so that the lone winner can fight him, the 13th member. Asakura tries to fight, but the golden rider is able to fight all four of them with no trouble. This is Kamen Rider Odin. Another one of my favorites. Of course it has the basic look of the 13 riders, but the addition of golden and feathery motif makes it look absolutely majestic. And being able to fight by barely lifting a finger makes him even cooler. He truly looks like a final boss. Odin tells them that it's not time to fight him yet. They should continue fighting each other. However, a small correction needs to be made. Odin uses a time vent card. Kanzaki is at his house and notices that one of Yui's drawing was torn. Shinji wakes up at the cafe. He sees Ren and Yui, but they don't recognize him. Shinji looks at the calendar and notices that it's February, the month when he first became a writer. Shinji has gone back in time to relive every event over again. This episode is basically just a clip show, but I admit that it's pretty clever, and it does end up with at least a somewhat satisfying conclusion. Along the episode, we get scenes of Shinji remembering something and trying to stop it, but Kanzaki makes him lose his memories again, so Shinji won't interfere with the flow of things. Then when Shinji is actually able to change a small piece, it ends up in the same place as before. And since we're going through the same thing again, allow me to catch up on a few suits I forgot to talk about. First, Kamen Rider Raya, Tezuka's rider. It's definitely based on a manta ray, alright. I really don't know what else to say about it. It's just another suit to me. I like the small markings on the chest though. Next, Kamen Rider Oja, Asakura's rider. This suit is so shiny, and purple is a nice color. I especially love the helmet and markings on it. It's overall not a bad suit. I'd buy a figure of him. And finally, Knight Survive. Man, I already love the base Knight suit, but the Survive form is just so cool. It just adds a bigger piece of the torso and a slightly new helmet, but the colors and the way the edges pop are just really amazing. Events play as normal, then it gets back to the point where Odin makes his first appearance, but this time, Shinji is able to land a hit on Odin. As time flowed, Shinji has been writing, "When you see golden feathers, punch behind you." Then Shinji says that something else has changed. The burden of the fallen riders has doubled, so Shinji will fight even harder this time. Odin leaves. Okay, this scene was really satisfying. By the end, we see that Yui's drawing is no longer ripped. It's a drawing of Yui and Kanzaki smiling. 6 episodes later. Yes, 6 episodes later. Shinji hears mirror noise and sees Kanzaki. Kanzaki hands him a survive card. Kanzaki says it's for when Shinji eventually fights other riders. Okay, hold up. I guess Kanzaki channeled his inner Gosei and handed out a power-up for no reason? At least with Tezuka, it was believable that Kanzaki had a bigger plan on whether Tezuka used it or not. Kanzaki just needed the card out there, but with Shinji, I got nothing. Ren already owns a survive card and Tezuka was already an unpredictable variable, so why do it again? If anything, Asakura should have been the one to get one. Asakura at least wants to fight. Kanzaki says that it's for when Shinji eventually fights. Eventually. Shinji barely fights other riders in the first place and never escalates to the point where he needs a survive card. Oh my gosh, this is so stupid. Right when I was enjoying Ryuki, they throw this crap at me. Did I also mention that this was after 6 episodes? But it gets worse. Later on in the episode, Ren, Shinji, and Yui have fun for once in an amusement park. Then Ren wants to fight Shinji. Like, right now. They can't wait. They absolutely need to fight right now and ruin the one day of fun they had together. But wait, there's more. Of course, Shinji doesn't want to fight, but it seems like Ren is out for blood as he uses Night Survive. Then Shinji uses his own Survive card and becomes Kamen Rider Ryuki Survive. Flames, fighting, whoa. I'm not done complaining yet because I think Ryuki Survive looks absolutely horrendous. It's just one big blob in the middle of the base Ryuki suit. The helmet does look pretty cool though. It has a gold trimming, so that's nice. And hey, what do you know? Even with the power-up, in its debut episode, Ren is still capable of killing Shinji. And the absolute worst part of all this? People have the absolute nerve to say that Ryuki Survive is one of the best arcs of the season. Or wait, even worse, it's one of the best scenes in Kamen Rider. To that I say, what arc? Shinji was literally handed the card. There was no arc. Do people mean the few minutes of Shinji being forced to use the card against his best friend? That's not an arc. Shinji wasn't exactly forced and they're barely friends in the first place. Does the suit alone carry whatever this miserable excuse for an arc is? Shinji uses the card and gets surrounded by flames. Okay, yes, I admit it looked cool, but the suit sucks and the fire symbolism gets dull after the second time. Oh, but maybe I'm forgetting. Maybe this is cool because Ren got his power up before the main rider. Okay, and being different doesn't automatically make this good. It's nice, sure, but what does it really matter if a secondary rider gets his power up before the main one? Does it develop the characters more? Does it add to the story? It barely adds anything more to the fight scenes aside from having a new toy to sell. And speaking of the fight scene, it was barely a fight scene. I mean, the composite shots were cool having multiple riders fight when they were just clones of each other, but really, that's it? Oh, but trust me, I have way more to say to the fan base, but I'll say that for the end. For now, Ryuki Survive sucks, and it's a waste of time. But if you like it, okay, I'm not gonna judge you for it. Okay? Next. Shinji hears mirror noise. Oh no, not again. And it leads him to a university lab. It seems to be a misunderstanding as the only people there are a professor and some students. Unfortunately, we don't see any students with a pompadour or deep obsession with space. Shinji's about to leave when he bumps into someone and drops papers. Shinji helps clean up and reads a paper that says Mirror World. He then gets kicked out. Shinji hears mirror noise, again, and enters the mirror world. He fights monsters but then sees an axe fly through the air, and it belongs to a new rider. Kamen Rider Tiger. Blue and white are good colors and the details are fine enough, which is what I can say about the suit overall. It's fine enough. They go back to the real world and Shinji notices that the professor from earlier, named Kagawa, is holding the Tiger deck. He says that the monsters were sent by Kanzaki to stop the lab because they're finding out how to seal the mirror world. That way, the monsters, as well as the riders, would cease to exist. Shinji wants to help, but Kagawa doesn't trust him. After fighting a monster, Shinji notices that Yui is being dragged into the mirror world. Once inside, Yui is face to face with what appears to be another rider. The name of this non-rider is Alternative. Yes, non-rider, or pseudo-rider if you want to call it that. For some reason, he isn't classified as a common rider despite having a user who says Henshin to transform into an armored hero. I really don't get it. First V1 and now Alternative? I would really like an official statement on why they're not riders. And saying just because is not an answer. As for the suit, it looks really weird. Almost like it was cobbled together in a day, but I think it works because that's what they're going for in the first place. Still, I can't see why others may dislike it. I'm personally leaning towards disliking it, but you'll get used to the look eventually. Shinji fights Alternative, but he escapes. Yui appears to be fine despite being exposed to the mirror world for so long. Yui says she's being targeted because she's Kanzaki's sister. Shinji goes back to the university lab. He tries to get Kagawa to trust him by saying that Kamen Rider Tiger saved Shinji in an earlier fight. Everybody in the lab pulls out the Tiger deck. Kagawa says that sealing the mirror world requires heroic conduct. For example, 10 lives or 1 life. What would be the easier choice to go with? Shinji stays silent. The courage to sacrifice one to save many is the obvious choice, the professor says as he walks away. Shinji and Yui go back to the cafe and see a young man who became a part-timer there. Shinji recognizes him as Tojo Satoru, one of the students from the lab. Shinji pulls him aside to ask how to seal the mirror world. Tojo can't say. Shinji at least wants to know who Tiger is. Tojo can't say that either. But it seems like Tojo and his colleagues know about Ren being a Kamen Rider. Shinji thinks it over and comes to the conclusion that the people in the lab are the ones targeting Yui. After a fight with Alternative, Shinji asks Tojo why Yui is their target. Tojo explains that if Yui is gone, the mirror world and the Kamen Riders will also be gone. Yui would be the one sacrificed to save the lives of many. Alternative and Shinji fight again. This time, Shinji given an answer. Whether it's one or many, he will not allow anyone to be a sacrifice. Alternative attacks while Shinji's back is turned, but Tiger appears to defend Shinji. Tiger uses a final vent and kills Alternative. It turns out that Alternative was a student from the lab, but it's not Tojo. Kamen Rider Tiger has been Tojo the entire time. Tojo says that he doesn't want to kill Yui anymore, and yet he was able to kill his own comrade. Kanzaki tells Ren that a certain someone needs to be defeated because they're gonna attack Yui. So Ren goes back to the cafe and tells Tojo to leave. Ren knows about the lab's plan that involves Yui. Ren goes to the lab to tell Kagawa to stay away from Yui or he's gonna have to use force. It seems Kagawa is also about to take something out, but his son and wife come for a visit. After saying bye to his family, Kagawa explains that he just so happened to stumble upon Gonzaki's research on the mirror world. I guess you could say that Kagawa has been a bad boy for peeping. The two stand in front of a window and transform. Kagawa becomes Alternative Zero. It's basically the same suit with some extra bits and pieces. Despite the minor additions, I kind of prefer this suit over the other. I really don't know why, I just rather look at this one. I mean, it's still weird and kind of a bad suit overall, but it's bearable. Shinji and Tojo end up fighting. Tojo says that Shinji is just like the rest. If he can't sacrifice anyone, then he shouldn't be a rider. Tojo's about to kill Shinji until Kagawa stops him. Tojo took too many needless lives. Kagawa is proud that Tojo is trying to be a hero, but killing off his comrade wasn't a good thing. In fact, some people might consider it rude to kill your friend. Kagawa says that a real hero is one that suffers. Tojo doesn't know that feeling. After hearing mirror noise, Kagawa meets up with Kanzaki. Kanzaki gives him a choice. Give up the alternative deck and cards, or let Kagawa's family be killed by a monster. One thing must be given up to save the lives of many, Kanzaki says. Tojo knows that Kagawa has an easy choice. Kagawa is a true hero after all. Ren is getting tired of Tojo's nonchalant attitude. Kanzaki casually tells him to settle it in a fight. Kanzaki wants an answer already. Kagawa has had an answer since the day he found Kanzaki's research. Kagawa transforms. Ren, Kagawa, and Tojo fight, with Asakura and Kitaoka meeting the new riders for the first time. And for some reason, there are a lot of mirror monsters than usual. Later that night, we see the horde of monsters again, but behind them is another rider. Tojo wonders if Kagawa's family is important. Of course, family is important, but Kagawa assures himself that he will sacrifice his family if necessary. That's just what a true hero would do, right? At the cafe, Shinji serves a guy who then hands him a business card. Mitsuru Sano, Kamen Rider Emperor. Well, I think that's how it's pronounced. They say Impaler, but I don't want to have a V1 versus 6 system argument again, so I'm just going to pronounce it by how it's romanized. Emperor. Anyway, Ren and Shinji sit down with this new rider. It seems like Mitsuru really idolizes the two. He wants to serve them, but with a condition. Contract money. Ren immediately kicks him out. Then Mitsuru talks to Kagawa and Tojo with the exact same act he gave Shinji and Ren. But before he's able to bring up his money condition, they hear mirror noise, and Mitsuru transforms. This suit is probably my least favorite aside from Scissors. Yeah, I lean more towards that Scissors is ugly. Emperor's is better, but not by much. I do like the gazelle motif, but the torso is really putting me off. I know he also has a kickboxer motif, but something just doesn't feel right about the vest look. Tojo then kills Kagawa. Oh, I'm sorry, was that too abrupt for you? The show doesn't care about its story anymore, so why should I? Oh wait, Tojo doesn't want to seal the mirror world anymore because he wants to be the only rider left alive to become the true hero. What a waste of screen time. Tojo gets badly hurt after a battle, so Mitsuru decides to take care of him. Mitsuru then gets a call. His father is dead. Apparently, Mitsuru's dad was the president of a huge company, and since he died, Mitsuru is the new president. We then get a heartwarming scene. Mitsuru asks why Tojo fights. Tojo hopes that if he becomes a hero, everyone will like him. The next day, Mitsuru prepares for his new life as president, but Kanzaki is there waiting for him. Mitsuru only became a writer to have a happier life, but now that he's rich, he no longer wants to be a writer. Kanzaki says that Mitsuru already took the contract. He's a writer for life. Well, Mitsuru doesn't have to fight, but there will be consequences. Mitsuru then goes to the cafe to offer Ren and Shinji contract money. How the tables have turned. Shinji says no for the both of them, but Ren is clearly mesmerized by how much money it is. Mitsuru gives the same offer to Kitaoka. Kitawa accepts the offer, but first he needs to create a legal contract. After Mitsuru leaves, Kitaoka tells Goro that making a contract could take a while, possibly even a year or two. Mitsuru has dinner with his co-workers and he meets a young lady. She's cute and very sweet. The two go for a walk. It seems like for once, things are going right in Mitsuru's miserable life. He thinks to himself that he will fight only to protect his lifestyle. Mirror noise. Mitsuru transforms in front of his lady friend and fights Shinji. Tojo arrives, but he just stands there. Mitsuru is getting beat down, so he yells for help. Tojo finally decides to help, so he uses a final vent on Mitsuru. Tojo says that Mitsuru was the only one besides Kagawa to ever be nice to him, which is why he had to kill them. They were necessary sacrifices to make Tojo stronger. Mitsuru runs away. But since life hates Mitsuru as much as Ryo from Agito, Asakura arrives and finishes off Mitsuru for good. Then the Emperor deck breaks. In his final moments, Mitsuru bargains for his life. He yells for the girl he was with and manages to stand next to her in the mirror world. Mitsuru's final words are, "I just wanted to be happy." Mitsuru fades from the world and dies. Ren gets a call from Yui. It's an emergency. Yui notices that she's fading. She looks into a mirror and sees a young girl. The girl says that Yui will disappear on her 20th birthday, which is in 1 month. Ren, Shinji, and Yui discuss what's happening. Yui remembers that she used to draw pictures of monsters that look similar to the writer's contract monsters. She figures that the writers, the monsters, and the mirror world are all connected to her. If all this is true, then they now know Kanzaki's motive behind the writer war. Kanzaki doesn't want Yui to disappear. Shinji goes to the university lab one last time. Tojo is sitting there alone next to a furnace. Shinji asks if he knows anything about Yui and how she's connected to the mirror world. Tojo points to the furnace and leaves. Shinji reads what's left on the paper and finds out that Kanzaki is truly doing everything for Yui. Then Shinji gets confirmation from the man himself. The only other person that can save Yui is Shinji. Tojo walks down a sidewalk and is about to cross the street, but he sees an oncoming truck about to hit a father and son. Tojo jumps to save them at the last minute. We then see a newspaper saying that a father and his son were saved by a true hero. There aren't many riders left. The endgame has begun. On one rainy night, the cafe crew gather around to tell ghost stories. It's Shinji's turn to tell a story, but his is more mysterious than scary. When he was young, he played at the park with a girl. They were supposed to meet up the next day, but it was raining, so Shinji couldn't go. But somehow, the girl appeared in his room. They played together, and then she disappeared. The next day, Raiko and Shinji investigate a case about a con man who's about to swindle a young woman named Miho. The two are about to apprehend the con man, but Miho takes off running. It turns out that Miho was the swindler the entire time. Shinji catches up with her and they both hear mirror noise. Miho then transforms into history's first female Kamen Rider. Well, we did have a female superhero in Kamen Rider before, but she doesn't count as a Kamen Rider for some dumb reason. But that's neither here nor there. Our first female rider is called Kamen Rider Femme. A little on the nose there, Toei. Anyway, the suit doesn't look too bad. It fits alongside the rest of the Ryuki riders, but with that point, this one kind of also blends in with the other suits. Standalone, it's alright, but it could be better. I like the gold details and the sharp helmet. Later on, Kanzaki gathers all the remaining riders. Kitaoka, Ren, Shinji, Asakura, and Miho. But Kanzaki says that there's still one more rider that they'll encounter very soon. For now, Kanzaki explains that time is almost up. They have 3 days until their wish can no longer be granted, so they must fight. And they do. After the fight, Miho tells Ren and Shinji that Asakura killed her older sister. Miho's motive to fight is to wish her sister back. Yui remembers something from her childhood and digs up a box with drawings, confirming that she did have something to do with the mirror world. Yuri remembered that she made a promise to a little boy that they would meet again at a park. The boy didn't show up, so she played with her mirror self. They played for too long, so the real Yui couldn't return. Mirror Yui offers a trade. They could go back to the real world, but the drawings they made would stay in the mirror world. Meanwhile, Miho and Asakura fight. It seems like Asakura is about to finish her off until a black dragon saves her. It belongs to a rider that looks like Ryuki, but with black colors instead of red. This is Kamen Rider Ryuki, and I absolutely love this suit. I don't mind recolors all that much, at least not until we get to Driving Ghost, but for now, the suit looks really cool. Plus, Ryuki looks absolutely terrifying when his eyes glow. Ryuki is able to weaken Asakura to a point where we see the Oja armor turn gray. Miho takes the chance and destroys Asakura's deck. The Oja armor breaks, leaving Asakura exposed to the mirror world. Asakura pins Miho to the wall in a final attempt to fight, but he fades away before he can do anything. With another rider dead, 5 more remain. A wounded Kitaoka considers quitting the Rider War. He and Goro go out to buy flowers for Raiko, but this time, Kitaoka leaves the Zolda deck behind. Kitaoka officially forfeits the battle. 4 riders are left. After some shenanigans with Shinji and Miho, yeah, they went on a date or something, don't ask. Shinji tries to throw Miho off a building, but it seems like time is up as Shinji begins to fade. Except it's not the real Shinji. Mirror Shinji transforms along with Miho and they fight in the mirror world. Mirror Shinji is about to kill her until the real Shinji arrives to help. Shinji and his doppelganger face each other. It seems like they're about to fight, but Miho is in a bad shape, so they exit the mirror world. Before leaving, Shinji asks Miho if she's gonna quit the Rider War. She says she'll think about it. Miho waves goodbye and falls. Kamen Rider Fem dies. The only riders left in the war are Ren, Shinji, and Ryuga. Yui explains everything she possibly can to Ren and Shinji. The real Yui died in the mirror world, so Mirror Yui gave her life, but it would only last up until Yui's 20th birthday, which is today. Kanzaki's official plan was to make all the riders fight in order to have enough power to revive Yui. At the cafe, Shinji realizes that Yui was the girl he was supposed to meet at the park all those years ago. Everything started because of him. All the deaths and tribulations were all because Shinji didn't keep his promise of meeting with Yui the next day. Yui sits down with the cake. Her brother is there to wish her a happy birthday. Yui remembers all the times they had together. Kanzaki just promises to give her a new life. Yui says he doesn't have to. She's not a child anymore. She blows out the candles and dies. Yui committed suicide. Kanzaki just disappears. For good. With nothing left to do, Shinji and his mirror self fight. They use their final vents, leaving only Ren and Shinji alive for the Rider War. A swarm of mirror monsters attack the city. Ren tells Shinji that he's never had anyone to call a friend. However, Shinji is someone he can say is his only friend. Ren asks Shinji to fight with him. Shinji just has one wish: don't die. The two use their survive cards and transform one last time to fight the mirror monster swarm. What happens after? That's for you to decide. Fate has many branches, and this is only one of them. In another branch, we get to see the last rider's involvement within the story. Kamen Rider Verde. Quick side note, I'm probably biased because my favorite color is Verde, but I really do like the suit. It's not bulky, it's simple yet effective, and it has enough detail for it to be appealing. In Verde's story, Shinji has a choice to either seal the mirror world or continue fighting despite Ren dying in his arms. In the world of If, Kanzaki ends up being able to be the last rider standing, but at the cost of killing Yui. Despite being able to finally grant a wish, Kanzaki spends the rest of his life mourning Yui's death. In Advent Calendar, Shinji's twin brother joins in the Rider War as Ryuga, but Shinji is the final rider standing. So Shinji's wish is to revive all the victims of the Rider War. There are several different branches that Ryuki could have taken. What if Ren and Shinji are the only riders alive to fight their own war against mirror monsters? What if Shinji had the choice to seal the mirror world or continue fighting as Kamen Rider Knight? What if Kanzaki was victorious with his plan to be the final rider? What if Shinji was the real victor of the Rider War? However, there is one true ending, with one true finale to the history of Kamen Rider Ryuki. What does fate have in store for us?